Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the actual making of the creation of the behemoth, which is what I've lovingly named this book. Initially, I thought I was going to bind it with a hardcover, but realizing how many pages I had and I'm doing it single page binding, we decided to try something completely different than what I've normally done. So the start of this whole process is actually me taping all of the edges of the single pages, because moving forward, I'm going to be putting individual holes in every one of these pages, 6 in total, so that there's 6 bindings in essence that keep the back covers connected to all of the individual pieces from my 4 drawing books of 2024. Excuse me, 2023. I'm making it in 2024. Here you see me actually figuring out how best to put in these 6 holes in the various sizes of the pages and how that's going to correlate to the actual cover itself. After I figured that process out, I sketched what I wanted for the front and back covers, and I'm doing what's called an underpainting right now. So I just did a nice wash of, I have so much of this teal on the front and back covers. And as I was letting that dry and thinking of what I wanted to do, I actually went through the process of nailing holes into all of my pages. As you can tell, all of this is a very time-consuming process, and it's a lot of fun for me to do the same thing over and over again, and so it's very meditative for me. Again, I'm on my secondary favorite workspace, which is my floor. Just going through doing all of the holes, because if you've ever worked in bookbinding before, it is very important to try and have as similar of a process as possible when you're working with so many moving pieces to create one singular non-moving piece. So welcome. This is days after that first process was started. And now is where I'm going to tell you, please learn from my mistakes. This thread was way too long. It was way too long for me to be working on in individual pieces, because every single hole has its own individual thread and needle that I'm using to bind. So just accept you're going to rethread your needles a million times. Do not do these long ass strands like I have done. And having the correct tools help as well. I have curved needles for 4 of the 6 holes that I was working on. But when you're working with books, it's a lot easier for you to be using curved needles entirely. I had 2 straight needles, 4 curved needles, but for this, it worked okay. Now, this is where I totally realized I was not doing a time lapse. And so I've just got like 40 freaking minutes of me binding this beautiful book, and it's far too long for this app, so obviously we've had to cut a lot of that out. But it is very much a monotonous, I had many movies on in the background, all of my comfort movies, so Sleeping with the Enemy, Jane Eyre, Pride and Prejudice. We've got a theme going, as you can tell. But it's very similar to what's called a Coptic stitch, so you're almost weaving each page that is being laced on top with the weaves that are underneath it. I thought I had done some video that was up close of this, and so I did not. Apologies. I'll just have to make another fun book and do some really in-depth detail work so that you guys can see it a little bit better. But I would say I'm about halfway done through this, and I've almost learned not to have such extremely long thread. Because I'm a stubborn mule. And so, at about this point, I was like, I can't do this much longer, because as you can see, this type of thread, as much as I really like it, it does get tangled. Not every thread has that issue, but this one certainly did. Now, I actually learned to bind books from a really wonderful professor I had in undergrad, and I have a lot of guilt in not remembering her name, because we were like her last class that she taught. I went to Cal State Bakersfield. Cal State University Bakersfield. Which was about as exciting as you could think it was, coming from one podunk dirt town in Mojave Desert to another podunk dirt town about 2 hours north. But it was honestly the best experience. I really loved my classmates. I adore my teachers. I loved that campus. I'm now realizing that this is in slow motion and not in stop with the fast. Whatever. It's fine. But I learned to make books from that professor in college, but honestly, I've learned a lot more to build up on that initial knowledge from a wonderful woman on YouTube whose name is Sea Lemon, Sealemon. She's got amazing, amazing stuff. And so I highly suggest that if you want to learn more about bookbinding, and she's got all sorts of other videos as well, that you go and you watch her videos. Because for this single page binding, I watched that video about 10 times through the process. But I just really did love this entire experience, and maybe I wouldn't do, this is 113 pages that I bound, and it took me about 7 or 8 hours, sitting and coming back and sitting and coming back. But I highly recommend doing something that you've never, you might have a gentle basis for, but you've never tried to do it before, because you will feel so accomplished after you finish it. I felt so damn good after I finished this. And I think this is the very end where I'm putting that top couple of layers on. And this is the final product. She's huge. She's gorgeous. She's shimmering. I've got a little bit of gold paint in there. And I left the interior as it is because this came from a really beautiful book that I still have, but I just, I took the edges off of my Atlas of the Universe. So I liked having the stars and everything on the inside. But yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm going to do like a art history video on the creation of books so that we can actually go through all of the artwork that I made last year. But that's how it is. Take care.